He got a wound.
Got some bickies in it.
Oh.
Put more
He
bickies in
got
it.
hit
What?
on the arm by a bullet
that?
somewhere or other.
Oh,
Right.
you can have
But he
bickies.
survived.
Wow.
You want a
That was the main
bickie?
thing.
And do you know where he was hit in terms of, was it in France at the time?
Very muffin.
Yeah, it would have been in France.
Right, wow.
I don't know what's
He spent a bit of time in
Yes.
England where they
put that
Arrived.
in there too, Anne.
Yeah.
started
You want a bickie?
going to France,
You
but
want a
they had to
bickie?
wait in England for a while.
Right.
Thank you.
While the
While everyone's not
mum's
here.
all the sort of the great grand nieces and nephews,
Yeah,
because you will be the only person that would remember people like your grandmothers on the Bull and the Dempsey side.
that's right.
So starting on, say, the Bull side, did Mama tell you much about England?
About England. Oh, there's an awful lot about England.
Did she tell you much about growing up in England?
Yes, she did tell me. She said she lived at 236 Drone Road, West Ham. It was her and Uncle Harry, and they lived in a, what do you call it?
Like a terrace house, was it?
Terraced house,
Right.
it was semi-detached. Grandfather made harnesses for the horses, the horse-drawn carriages in London and England at that time. So he became a harness maker, but he was very clever. Mama had one of his school books. I don't know where it is. And he wanted to go on, but no, he had to get out and earn money because Grandma Bull, Mum's mother, Eva Nellie Dow, was the youngest child of James Dow and Ruth Boggess. And Ruth Boggess and James Dow, I don't know where they met, but Ruth Boggess was born in 1836. Helen's got a big not a patchwork, a tapestry, I think, that she did. Helen's got it up at her place and we framed it. It's almost falling to pieces. And Grandma was the youngest, and James Dow, he was a labourer, and I'm not sure what Ruth did, but the poor man, before he got too old, he got TB.
Right.
And he ended up in Colchester Hospital with TB, and he was there for months. And Grandma was only about, Grandma Dow she was, Eva Dow was, she was only about 3 or 4. And then he came home for a little while. They thought he got a bit better. And Grandma fell in a well around the place. And someone had to get out and pull her out of the well. This is our grandma, Mum's mother. And her father said to them, well, put her in bed with me. She's freezing cold. Put her in bed with me and I will get her warmed up, because he was in bed still. Anyway, that was the end of him. He got really bad again, and I think he died in Colchester Hospital. And one of his letters I've got framed. Who's got that now? His last letter that he wrote to the wife and children from Colchester Hospital. It was a sad letter, but he must have been a good living man, and he wished God would look after them. And
That's your great-grandfather?
yeah, James Dow, yes.
Right. What did he do for a living? A labourer, you said?
Well, I think he might have been a labourer. I'm not sure what Ruth did.
Right.
But
and did you meet?
well, I mean, they died in England.
Right.
But my grandma, Mum's mother, Grandma Bull, yes, she was a big lady, had quite a big chest and quite a solid looking lady. She had one bung eye. she knocked her eye out with a copper stick and could never see again. I mean, these are the things. This was when she came to Australia. And when Mum said Grandfather Bull wanted to come out, Uncle Ernie had come out before Grandfather. Uncle Ernie and Auntie Lily and Connie and Irene had come out in 1910 in the ship. And I don't know how Uncle Ernie came out first. He was a good tradesman, a carpenter. And he worked for the Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation in Melbourne. So then Grandfather Bull decided he would come out because the end of saddle making for transport in London was finishing. They were got cars.
And what year was that? Like 1911? 12?
Yeah, well, they came out in 1912. Uncle Ernie came out in 1910. The Melbourne Bulls came out in 1910, I think.
How's Uncle Ernie related again?
Uncle Ernie was Grandfather Bull's next brother down.
Right.
There was Victor, grandfather was the eldest. Then Ernie came, then there was Rose and the end of the line was Mary. And I'll have to tell you.
Did you know any of those?
No, well,
bulls?
they were all in England.
So you just knew Ernie?
We only knew Ernie, Uncle Ernie and Auntie Lily in Melbourne. Well, they were at your mother's and father's wedding.
And the bulls never, no other bull ever came out to visit any of your grandfather's family?
No, and when I was born, I was going to say that in my little speech I was going to give you. I was born in 1933. Grandfather Bull and Grandma had never been back to England since they came here, and they must have saved up enough money. Grandfather Bull was a warder in Bailey Henderson Hospital. Uncle Harry worked there, Mum worked there, and Sheila worked there. They all went to work as in the dementia section of, well, Bailey Henderson Hospital was the mental hospital, Willowborough. And Grandfather decided they'd go home to England. So when I was about 18 months old, I think it was in early 35, they took off for England. And when they came back, I don't know how long they were away, there should be some photos. I said to Louise, where are all those photos of the Dow family? Because all the relatives, the Bulls and the Dows, were still in England. Although one of the Bulls had gone to America. I forget what was her name. I can't think of her name now. She was lived in Rhode Island. I think I've got more information about her there. But Mum corresponded with all of them, with the Dow, Roger. No, was it Roger? I've got a lot of letters there from the English relatives. I've got them filed in a file there. And she talks about the various people.
Okay.
One of these days you might be able to have a look.
I've seen some photos. Did you know your grandfather Bull?
No. Oh, well, I mean, he knew me.
Right.
But I met him, but I was only a baby.
Right.
So he died in 1935.
Right.
So Grandma was a widow.
Right. And when did she die again?
1957. So she was like your mum. She was a widow for a long time.
In Mackay as well. Definitely in Toowoomba,
Yeah.
around the corner in Toowoomba.
Grandma didn't live with us in Toowoomba, but she lived in her own house down at 222 Ruthven Street beside the Moffat Hotel.
Right.
And she lived on it. That's where Dad boarded after, when their Grandfather Bull must have been alive, because Dad boarded with Grandma and Mum and Auntie Sheila and Grandfather and Bill Porter. They had a room in the house there. They boarded with Grandma Bull. She was a good cook.
Right.
Or a bit like your mother, good cook.
Right.
With good meals. Dad said she was terrific. So he boarded there. And Mum thought he was going to be a priest.
Right.
But Mum at that stage was going out with another fella called Reuben Riesmuller, and he was part of the German crowd
Right.
over in Toowoomba somewhere. And I think Mum I don't know how long Mum had a few boyfriends. No, I think they all wanted to get married to her, but in the end she didn't marry the Riesmuller fella, but
Right.
Dad, she found out that Dad was all keen. But she lived at the hospital most of the time that Dad boarded with his...
Okay. She was a nurse there.
Yeah.
Right. At Bailey Henderson.
At Bailey Henderson. And the trouble with Mum is now, she left before she did the final exam and she never got a full nursing certificate.
Right.
But she knew all about, she'd been there for ages.
Right.
And big words she used to tell us she carried around in her apron and learnt all the words for the psychiatric nurse.
Okay.
How old was Mama when she started do the nursing?
Oh, well, she couldn't start till she was 21. She worked in Hoover's factory as a factory girl for years. They were the best people she ever worked for, she said. Hoover's factory.
What sort of...
Oh, where she had to walk right up to nearly to St Patrick's Cathedral. She walked about 5 k's a day.
What was she doing?
What was the work that she had to
packing
do?
soap and what did Hoover's make? Washing powder and soap and I think they made toilet paper. They were a big factory, but they were a very good boss. And do you remember Mama and Maureen talking about Auntie Sadie Berkeley?
Yes, yes.
Well, Mum met Auntie Sadie there. Up there, she knew Sadie from...
From the factory. Did they work
from
together?
The factory. And the Lonergan lady, I think. Well,
Right.
Mum's old friend, she worked at Hoover's. And when she couldn't go nursing until I think it was 21 in those days.
So did she work there from when she finished school?
Well, Mum only went to 6th class. She was 13 and a half when she left school. She was... What I was going to tell you about the bulls, the youngest bull was called Mary, Victor's sister, the youngest bull. And she married a fella called Hunt. And Hunt, I don't know much about them, but they had one boy called John Cyril Stanley Hunt. And he married a nice lady called Marion, oh, I forget her name. When they were older, he had gone off to be a priest, I think, and she'd gone off to be a nun, but how they met up, I don't know. But they were older when they got married, and he was Mum's cousin, of course, this John Hunt, and they decided to come to Australia in, I think about 1915. There was only the two of them, and she was a very good Catholic, Marion, because she'd been a nun. I don't know whether the Hunts were Catholics or not. And they came here, and I've got a little photo of them coming on the ship to Brisbane. But they stayed in Brisbane, and they used to come up occasionally to see Mum. Give me a cup. And Mum thought Marion was the nicest person she'd ever met, and she thought her cousin was terrible. She thought he was a real piggy sort of fellow. Anyway, one time then they came up and they brought a baby with them. And Marion didn't say anything much about the baby, but Mum was convinced that little Jackie was adopted, because she said Marion had never, they'd been married for years and years and never had a child. And she said, I'm sure Marion was adopted. Jackie was adopted. He was born on the 1st of January 1925, and they were married way back in 1912 or something.
Right.
But Mum was never sure, and Marion never told her because the husband was pretty awful, and she said she thought that her cousin was terrible to the baby. He didn't know what to do, and he was awful. So I don't know how old little Jackie was, but Mum always worried about little Jackie. She could never forget him.
Oh.
And they went back to Brisbane, and then she did get a letter, which I've still got a copy of, saying that little Jackie had had his tonsils out. The doctor had come to the house and taken them out on the kitchen table, but she couldn't let the husband stay at home. He couldn't cope with that. So a neighbour came in, some man that was a neighbour wherever they lived, Lutwich I think, and he came in and helped her with the operation or with the doctor, and
That's
took out
crazy.
his.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I've heard those stories about
Oh, gosh.
tonsils. They do it very quickly in the old days with a very hot knife. And
Well,
you
that's
fall-
what Mum got her tonsils out, and she said I was sitting in the gutter. We left the Children's Hospital in London, and I was sitting in the gutter with my father vomiting my heart out on the way home from the hospital after getting the tonsils out.
Right,
That was Mum remembered her tonsils.
wow.
And
And just